Hey guys, the Raptor here. Today we're going to be taking a look at explosive shot. First, I want to get a couple things out of the way though. My apologies for not live streaming the last couple of Wednesdays. My schedule has been disrupted a bit, so I'm changing my schedule to release a video every Wednesday and live stream on Saturdays, so the internet should be better and more people should be able to join. Anyway, on with the video. So the question is explosive shot really worth using? It gives you a dramatic increase to the damage output for your gun, but it also dramatically decreases the amount of time it takes to overheat your gun. So the question is, do the costs outweigh the benefits? This is a bit more complicated to answer than you might think. First, I thought I would just be able to look up the statistics on battlefront.fandom.com and find the damage output, and then there were none. After seeing that, I seriously considered emailing EA to ask for some stats, but I couldn't find any way to contact them other than their tech support and a random address to mail a letter to ask about privacy policy questions. So I ended up having to research everything. But before we dive into that, let's go over all the basics of explosive shot that we can find on battlefront.fandom.com. Explosive shot is a charge card which can be purchased upon reaching rank 18 for the relatively cheap sum of 1700 credits. Some people call this the triangle, but to make things clear, the charge card is the card that goes in the middle of your hand. Until you upgrade, you have a 7-second active time and a recharge time of 20 seconds. When you upgrade, you get 3 extra seconds of active time for a total of 10 seconds of explosive shot. This comes at the hefty cost 7,000 credits, as much as buying a trait. So whether the upgrade is worth it is really for another video though. Now the mechanics of explosive shot are to me convoluted and don't make a whole lot of sense, but we'll try and work through them to get an answer. First of all, it's pretty clear that explosive shot is adding a significant amount of damage to each shot. In my video on hands, I said that it adds 10 damage per shot, and while that is true in many cases, it does not always hold true. I ran many tests on most of the guns and began to find a pattern. Explosive shot seems to follow a series of steps depending on the base damage output of the blaster. In my test, I determined the base damage by firing one shot at point blank range at the head. After my tests, I found 3 classes: high, medium, and low. High powered guns are those doing 70 plus damage per shot, medium power guns were those doing between 40 and 70 damage, and low powered guns were anything below 40 damage per shot. For guns doing high damage such as the T21, the damage increase was 15 per shot. For moderate guns such as the E11, the damage increase was 10 per shot, and for low powered guns such as the DLT-19 light machine gun, the damage increase was 5 per shot. Now the question is, with the faster overheat time, what guns benefit the most from explosive shot, and which guns don't work well with it? There are a couple good ones that stand out right away. Krennic's gun does not have overheat other than just having to reload, so it benefits enormously from explosive shot. It gets 15 plus damage per shot, so before having to reload, it gets 90 plus damage for no extra penalty. The DLT-19X sniper rifle overheats in one shot anyway, so also gets a 15 plus damage increase for no penalty. A couple other mechanics to note before we get into when explosive shot is bad are that explosive shot is not enhanced by traits and is not affected by range. The base damage output done by the gun will still be affected by, say, Berserker, but then you add the explosive shot damage bonus onto that. Also, the base damage will still be affected by the drop-off of range, but the explosive shot bonus will stay at, say, 10 damage per shot regardless of range. Now, the key to answering whether explosive shot is worth using lies in the fact that explosive shot affects overheat times. Now, the truth is, explosive shot does not directly impact overheat times. It really approximately cuts the number of shots that you can have in half. For example, the T21B usually overheats after 12 shots, but with an explosive shot, it overheats in 6 shots. However, there are some instances where it is better than that. When used with the E11, explosive shot only cuts the number of shots down by 45%, but it's still close to 50%. Now, y'all are probably like, come on man, give the answer already. Is it worth it or is it not? To get the answer, we're going to take a look at damage per minute versus damage per second using the E11 as our standard gun. When taking into account overheat and cooldown times, the damage per minute with no explosive shot comes out to a whopping 11,685 damage per minute, which sounds crazy, but you'll only get that kind of damage output if you always have someone to shoot at point blank range in the head, which is essentially impossible. With explosive shot active, the damage per minute comes out to 10,500 or more than 1,000 damage less. That's a 10% decrease in damage output, and that sounds really disappointing, so what's happening here? The decreased overheat time ends up hurting the output in the long run, meaning that in the end, even though explosive shot adds an enormous damage boost, it has too much time where it's cooling down. However, if we look at the damage per second, we see a different story. Again, using the E11, we get 330 damage per second with no explosive shot. That might sound crazy, but you can check me on this. The E11 with no overheats gets 300 rounds per minute, which comes out to 5 rounds a second. Multiply that by the base damage of 66 and you get 330 damage in a second. Remember, this is theoretical since you would have to be at point blank range landing every headshot to get that kind of damage output. However, with explosive shot activated, you get 385 damage per second, or a 17% increase in damage per second, which is pretty huge. What we can take away from this is that explosive shot is super effective when used for short periods of time, and not so effective in the long run. In practical terms, that means that explosive shot is insane for taking out one guy, but you may be better off not using explosive shot when taking out large groups of people. We see this all the time in practicality. You walk around the corner, an enemy with explosive shot blows you to high heaven and then overheats, and the guy who comes around right behind you gets the kill. The only guns that I would totally avoid using explosive shot with are the burst guns, such as the EE3. It may seem powerful at first, but the power of the burst gun lies in the fact that it can get a large number of shots off in quick succession, and if you cut that number in half, it really weakens the potential of the gun. That's all for this one though. If there's anything confusing that I didn't explain, please let me know in the comments below and I'll do my best to explain it. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you in another video.